Hey Dwellers, to stay up to date on all the latest news, reviews, openings and of course weekly programming, just click on the little guy here in the corner to subscribe and you'll get notifications when the newest content lands. And please enjoy the video. Hello Dwellers and welcome to another top 10, and today we're going to do, well, as we just had the release of Assassin's Creed Origins, we're going to go through the top 10 assassins of the Assassin's Creed games. Now on this list I'm only including the games from the main series, so we'll be leaving out the mobile games and the Chronicles series. Well, starting us off we have Valene. Now playing as Valene Assassin's Creed Liberation, which was the PSP and the Vista versions of the game they released, you followed her journey as an assassin through New Orleans. Basically she was trained in the Assassin's Order rather than being raised into it, and as she learned about the war between the two factors, she eventually found herself in a position where she joined the Templar Order under false pretenses and eliminated them all from within. Through her story she showed a deep yearning for justice and for peace, and she basically used the skills that she learnt along her journey to carry these out for the New Orleans area, eventually eliminating the Templar Order there. Going on to Connor. Now throughout Assassin's Creed 3 we started off with Connor as a child in his native village, and we saw how his character grew from a free child to meeting Achilles after having a spirit journey telling him about the assassins loosely. They go there. Achilles also is the old assassin who trains him right the way through until eventually he becomes a master assassin of the American colonies, spread over a 20-year journey. They go through the story over those years of how he takes down the Templar Order step by step whilst they're seeking a vault from the ones who came before. And throughout this with Connor we get to see great emotional and mental growth, and just see how he changes and matures throughout the game, becoming a true assassin master in the end. Then we have Arno Dorian. Now Arno grew up in the revolutionary France era. He was the son of an assassin who was killed by the Templar Shay. After being raised by a foster father, Arno grew to find out more about the Assassin's Order and the Templars, and he was drawn into the Assassin's Order just like his father and his mother were. With his old lover Elise becoming a Templar agent though, as she was raised to be, he was forced in the end to go up against the orders of the Assassin's Order while still upholding their principles against the Templar Order. But due to the nature of the relationship he had with Elise, they show throughout the story his continuous internal conflict between upholding what he believes himself, what he believes he has to do for him and Elise, and between what the Templars and the Assassins are actually each doing, and of course his commitment to the Assassin's Order that he's been raised with originally. It's a great bit of storytelling when it really gets into it, and you can really get to understand the struggle between choosing what's in his heart and what he's been told is the right thing to do in life, and it led to a great character at the end of the game. Regardless of the fact the game had its own bad history because of it being pushed out to her and its glitches, etc., this Arno did develop eventually into quite a strong character, although he did start off a little bit flat. Next we have Haytham Kenway. Now although Haytham Kenway is actually a Templar, he did start off as an assassin. I felt like he should be included in this list really, as he did play a good deal of Assassin's Creed 3's prologue as Haytham. In a very short space they showed a lot for his character. They gave a really detailed story of what he was doing and why he wanted to do it, and basically I think it's the best prologue they've delivered in the series, including that great plot twist which the first time they revealed him as a Templar I literally stopped in shock. And I always remember the achievement being how are them apples, so they obviously knew they were going to get a lot of people with that. As the son of an assassin, obviously Edward Kenway, he learned everything of the Assassin's Order, the training, their combat skills, and he took that to the Templars when he changed over, as he found their creed more appealing, and also, as is stated if you read the books, and they do cover it a little bit in the game as well, the fact that he had a grudge against the assassins for keeping his father so distant from him and his sister throughout their lives, especially during their childhood years. With the skills that he had, he excelled in the Templar Order and eventually became the Master Templar of the West Indies chapter. And Shay Patrick McCormick. Well, Shay, again, like Haytham, was raised as an assassin. He again was raised as an assassin from a young child, but he struggled with keeping his discipline, which was expected in the assassins. He wanted to be a bit more, do things his own way and be a free spirit. It basically led to he was part of a small colony inside the Brotherhood that he found within his small groups different types of training. But when they started going after the Vault led by Achilles, obviously from Assassin's Creed 3 as well, he basically saw how the assassins at times could become really selfish, and they had the ability to sacrifice innocent people for a grab for power. And this led to him eventually turning his back on the assassins and joining the Templar Order in the hopes of protecting the innocent from his former brothers and sisters. Throughout Assassin's Creed Rogue, you really get to see a great development of Shay's character, how he matures, how he becomes stronger, how he becomes more convicted in what he believes he has to do to keep people safe, and the emotional battle that he goes through in trying to decide what is right. And eventually you get to see him grow and develop into a master warrior and Templar agent in the end, while still really honing in his assassin skills. As I said, he was a Templar for the majority of the game. I mean, the game was Rogue based on that concept, but still, as you played him in the role using assassin skills, well, he deserved a good place on this list. Found such a great story as well. And the nice tide over they did was that the fact you saw in his later chapters him taking charge of a piece of Eden, which he actually killed Thomas Dorian to take it, which was the father of Arno Dorian, which ties Rogue and Unity together perfectly. And next we got Evie and Jacob Frye. Now, this brother and sister assassin duo had to put on here together because really they were two sides of the same coin. So these are the assassins that served in England during the Victoria period, and their story starts off with them doing a few missions and then choosing to move to London to hunt down the Templar Order as they were getting bored, and eventually finding out that the Templars there were hunting the Shroud of Eden, obviously another piece of Eden. And they split off with their own stories. It was pretty awesome, really. I mean, Jacob founded his own gang called the Rooks, and there was a lot of things in the game to do with gang warfare, taking territories, etc., which I personally found a lot of fun to do. And just seeing the cockiness of his character and how he just liked to do everything because a direct fight for victory, no messing around, just charging and bash their heads in. It was a really fun way of playing the game for some people. Like for me, I enjoyed just that whole, they threw the stealth to one side for a little bit and were just happy to have you charge and start smashing heads. Whereas Evie was much more traditional, and she would do the traditional use of stealth, using gadgets, and was a much quieter fighter, although if she was in a head-to-head confrontation, she could easily kick ass herself. So throughout Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you got to see the differences there between the two, how they both took their own journey, although they were still crisscrossing with each other and joining together at times when they needed to. And obviously the DLC as well showed more with the Jack the Ripper DLC. It gave a nice backstory to Jacob in particular, and also showed him dying, so they rewrote their own little bit of history there for that. It was great just having the two characters combining as like one giant character, while still having their own separate little stories that you could follow whenever you chose to. Then we go on to Bayek of Siwa. Now, this is the latest assassin we've been shown in the series. Basically, it's a fantastic story for what I've seen so far for Bayek. I'll say I'm most of the way through Assassin's Creed Origins, but not quite at the end yet. So basically you get to watch the journey of how Bayek goes from a heartbroken father and one of the Magi protectors of Egypt. You also get to see how great he is as a loving husband, and you watch his evolution through grief and anger to becoming more absolved into justice, and eventually creating the very first foundations and first versions of the Assassin's Brotherhood. I found he's a very gripping character. He displays a lot of different sides, and you get to see how he first developed the ideals of the Brotherhood and how he first used its tools, like the very first hidden blade. I mean, there's a lot more in this character I could talk about, but for the sake of not dropping any spoilers really for Origins, as it is still quite a new game, I'll leave it there for now. And then we go on to Edward James Kenway. Now, having to be probably the most different main character out the entire series, Edward James Kenway started off as an English navyman, and he basically ended up sailing off to the West Indies because he wasn't happy living the life of being paid so low, and joined up with Edward Thatch, as he also known as Blackbeard, and taken up the life of piracy. And during these adventures he ends up crossing with Duncan Walpole, who was an assassin turned Templar, which you may notice there seems to be a lot of that going on. But he takes his identity after killing him in a fight, and without realising it, just trying to make a little bit of money off of completing his orders, he ends up getting unwittingly pulled into their war, which eventually leads to him taking down the Templar Order and allying himself with the assassins. Later in life he finally joined the Order, and he basically become their part of the Order, working the seas and fighting in their name and just spreading out their influence, leaving 2 children at home which would be raised back in England, which obviously one of them would be Haytham and the other one would be his daughter as well. And it's on to Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Now, this is the assassin that people that don't even know Assassin's Creed know this assassin just through games. That's how big a story he had. He's had the most games in the series as well, including basically a very famous trilogy that he's had, and mobile games that have been spun off, and 2 animations that have also been spun off to tell the starting and end story of Ezio. He was an assassin in the Italian Renaissance, and he'd basically be one of the most important assassins of all time. The only one I would consider more important out of the lot would be the person who's our number 1 pick. But basically, as he starts off unaware of the Assassin Templar War, until his father Giovanni and his brothers are all murdered in a Templar plot, and upon finding his father's gear, he then moves and is trained by his uncle Mario, who's also an assassin. He learns about the history of the assassins and the history of the Templars, and eventually over the series of the games it leads to him travelling across Rome, Masyaf in Syria, Constantinople, which is obviously in Turkey as we call it these days, and killing out numerous temple families and inspiring more and more generations of assassins and helping the Order grow. And he also acts as the messenger to Desmond Miles for the ones that came before. So as a whole, you get a long story of Ezio where you get to see how greatly he matures from a young cocky man who's a bit lost into such a strong and settled master assassin when he reaches his 60s, and you just get to see how he finally settles, and the difference between how he's so driven to drive the Templars away and stop them having power, but at the same time you just get so fed up with the people dying and everything. In the end, it's a nice emotional trip watching Ezio's story fold out over the years, and seeing the respect that he learns for everything around him as well. Now, I think before I show you number 1, we have a special mention, obviously, which would be Desmond Miles, because although this list is done based off the assassins in the past that you see in the Animus, it's worth mentioning Desmond was an assassin. His story was brief, as it was only an out story for the game, but it led us through the first half of the series, and his storyline was great, though it was short-lived. Watched him go from being helpless in the Animus to being a determined member of the Brotherhood before obviously sacrificing his life to preserve the future. It was an excellent addition to the games. It really gave his character depth and growth constantly, and it was just cool to see how he changed so much, and that's why whenever you go to Assassin's Creed, no matter how many they make, Desmond has to be a character to remember because he's the character that kicked off the entire series to begin with. Anyway, the number 1 pick, and if I can pronounce this correctly, Altair Abin Halad. Now, this is basically the obviously protagonist for the very first Assassin's Creed game. Growing up in the Levantine Assassin's Brotherhood in Masyaf, the Syrian-born assassin was raised to be an assassin exactly like his father was. He grew up showing natural skills in his work, and he was born with the eagle vision, which they named the sight. And he became arrogant through how easy the work was for him, and eventually, after making a lot of mistakes, he broke the creed that was written by the people that came before him, and as punishment he was stripped of his equipment and reduced back down to a novice. That's where Assassin's Creed 1 started, where you're the novice, you lost all your equipment, so you had to earn your equipment back, and you had to go through hunting down 9 targets, which was between the Templars, the Saracens, and people actually within your own groups as well. It's all given to him by his mentor, Al-Mulim, who in the end betrays him for the Apple of Eden. After killing his mentor, Altair then goes on to learn about the future from the apple, and it led him to recreating the Brotherhood in his new vision, which basically is what you get shown in every other game except Origins, obviously, as that's a prequel. It's also where he learned the ideas of having a gun built into the blade and having the other additionals built into the gauntlet, like the dart launcher, etc. And also, it's where the idea came from to have the second blade added in as well, so they can be more versatile. And obviously we learn through Revelations and through the books as well more about Altair, how he defeated a Templar named Maria, who then agreed to join the Assassins and start working with them. And they worked together until they ended up falling in love, and they had 2 sons as well, which led to Altair again restructuring his order and realising that it was better to show love, compassion and care for their children than what they'd traditionally been taught of separating themselves from their children at an early age, so the emotional attachments wouldn't be there. He was exiled in the end by another assassin called Marek, who was jealous because Marek's father was responsible for Altair's father dying and committed suicide to try and cleanse himself of his sins, and Marek could never accept that fact. And at 20 years of exile, he returned later to the Brotherhood to kill him and put the Brotherhood back to where it's supposed to be, which is the version of the Brotherhood you see in the later games. And obviously if you play Revelations, you'll see he's the one that finally put the Apple of Eden to rest in the library, which would then be locked up for hundreds of years. And in short, if it wasn't for Altair and the ideas he had and what he learned from Apple, the Brotherhood wouldn't have existed, and he wouldn't be able to have the future stories anyway. So that's why I had to pick Altair as my number 1. He's just got he's the story of the Assassin's Brotherhood in reality, and that's why with Origins coming out as well, it's so awesome to see that step between what Bayat created as the start of the Assassins to what Altair turned into eventually. Well, that's the top 10 Assassins from Assassin's Creed. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any thoughts on it, obviously drop it in the comments. As always, love to hear from you guys. And do you agree with my list, or would you have your own order for the list as well? And also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the content every single week. So now the content's going to be looking back. We'll be landing every Wednesday at 12 o'clock midday. That's British time. And the top 10s will be landing every Saturday at midday, obviously as well with British time. And also in the next few days as well, my first impressions of Assassin's Creed Origins are also going to be landing, so keep an eye out for that as well. So see, if you've already subscribed or you subscribe now, you'll get notifications to each of these coming out. And also if you've got any ideas of any top 10s or any looking back episodes that you'd like to see yourself for games and things that you've loved in the past, just drop me a message or drop it a comment at any of my videos, and I'll do it as soon as I'm able to. Obviously, the moment I've got my research placed, I know what I'm looking to, I'll drop it out there. Anyway, I've been Shadow Soul Dweller, and thanks very much for listening guys, and I'll see you out there.